You know what's fascinating? The people who respect you least are often the ones you've trained the longest. I know that sounds harsh, but stay with me, because understanding this one truth could transform every relationship in your life. Here's what nobody tells you about self-respect. It's not something you earn through achievement, success, or perfection. It's something you establish through boundaries, and most people get this completely backwards. Today, we're exploring why even intelligent, capable people accept terrible treatment, and more importantly, how to stop it. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus lived most of his life as a slave, literally owned by another human being. Yet he wrote something that changed how I think about respect forever. No one can hurt you without your permission. Think about that. A man who had every external reason to feel powerless discovered the ultimate truth about dignity. It's internal, not external. Modern psychology has validated what the Stoics knew intuitively. Research shows that people don't respect you based on your achievements or status. They respect you based on the standards you consistently enforce. You've probably experienced this pattern. Someone treats you poorly. You accept it hoping they'll change. They treat you worse. You accept that too. And suddenly you're trapped in a dynamic where disrespect is the norm. This isn't about blame. It's about understanding a fundamental truth. Respect is taught through behavior, not words. And whether you realize it or not, you've been teaching people exactly how to treat you. What you're about to learn is a complete reframing of how respect works, drawn from Stoic philosophy and modern psychology. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Permission Paradox. How you teach people to disrespect you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Here's what he understood. The disrespect itself isn't the problem. Your continued participation in the relationship after disrespect occurs. That's where the real issue lives. Think about how training works. When you reward a behavior, you get more of it. When you tolerate a behavior without consequences, you've essentially rewarded it. Modern behavioral psychology calls this intermittent reinforcement. Every time someone disrespects you and you continue the relationship as normal, you've sent a clear message. You can do this and face no consequences. Let me give you a concrete example. Someone chronically cancels plans with you last minute. You say, "It's okay," because you don't want to seem difficult. They cancel again. You accept it again. Eventually, they don't even bother making solid plans because they know you'll adapt to whatever they decide. You didn't wake up one day and decide to be disrespected. You made 1,000 small decisions to prioritize their comfort over your boundaries, and they learned exactly what you taught them. The good news? If you taught them this, you can teach them something different. But it requires understanding why you've been accepting less in the first place. Let's move on to Chapter 2. The Validation Trap. Why smart people accept poor treatment. Here's something that might sting. Most people who accept consistent disrespect aren't weak. They're addicted to something far more subtle, the occasional moment of validation. You tolerate 9 terrible interactions because the 10th one gives you a brief hit of approval or acknowledgement, and your brain remembers that hit, not the 9 disappointments. The Stoics understood this trap. Epictetus taught his students, "If you wish to be beautiful, do not seek it from others, seek it from yourself." He knew that seeking external validation creates a dependency that destroys self-respect. Research on self-esteem shows that people with contingent self-worth, worth based on external factors like achievement, appearance, or others' approval, are significantly more anxious, more depressed, and more likely to accept poor treatment in relationships. Why? Because when your worth is contingent, it's always at risk. You can't risk losing the relationship, even when it's damaging you, because you've made that relationship essential to your sense of self. The Stoic solution is radical. Ground your worth in something that can't be taken from you. Your character, your choices, your commitment to living according to your values. When you stop seeking validation and start seeking virtue, doing what's right regardless of recognition, something remarkable happens. You naturally stop accepting poor treatment because it no longer serves any purpose. Now, Chapter 3. The Scarcity Illusion. Why you think you can't do better. One of the most damaging beliefs that keeps people in disrespectful relationships is the scarcity illusion. If I demand better, I'll end up alone. Your brain whispers, at least this person gives you something. Better a little respect than none at all. But bad relationships don't protect you from loneliness. They guarantee it. Because when your time and energy are consumed by people who don't value you, you have nothing left for people who would. Seneca wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." The fear of being alone is almost always worse than the reality of solitude. Here's the mathematical reality. There are billions of people in the world. The scarcity isn't in available people. It's in your available time and energy. Every hour spent managing a relationship with someone who disrespects you is an hour you're not available for someone who wouldn't. Every emotional resource drained by poor treatment is a resource you can't invest in healthy connections. Modern attachment theory research shows that people often stay in unfulfilling relationships, not because the relationship is good, but because they haven't developed the emotional capacity to be alone. They've made another person responsible for their well-being. The Stoics would say this is a fundamental error. Your well-being is your responsibility. Other people can add to it, but they shouldn't be its foundation. When you're genuinely okay alone, you stop accepting poor company out of fear. We move on to Chapter 4. The Boundary Principle. Filters, not walls. Here's where most people misunderstand boundaries. They think boundaries are about keeping people out or being difficult. They're not. Boundaries are filters. They let the right people in and keep the wrong behaviors out. Think about a door versus a doormat. Both allow entry, but only one commands respect. A door has standards. It can open for some and remain closed for others. A doormat just lies there, accepting whatever steps on it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Reject your sense of injury, and the injury itself disappears." Not by accepting poor treatment, but by removing yourself from situations where poor treatment occurs. Here's the boundary principle most people miss. You don't announce boundaries, you demonstrate them. You don't argue about why disrespect is unacceptable. You simply make it unprofitable through your actions. Someone consistently interrupts you. Stop speaking until they finish, then calmly resume without addressing the interruption. Do this every time. They'll learn. Someone chronically cancels plans. Stop making plans with them. No explanation needed. When they ask why, you can simply say, "I prefer to make plans with people whose schedules are more reliable." Notice what you're not doing. You're not trying to change them or convince them. You're simply adjusting your behavior based on the reality of theirs. This is the paradox of boundaries. They actually make relationships easier, not harder. Clear expectations eliminate confusion. Consistent enforcement eliminates resentment. And here's the beautiful part. People who can respect your boundaries will. People who can't will naturally filter themselves out of your life, creating space for those who can. Research on relationship satisfaction consistently shows that relationships with clear, consistently enforced boundaries are more stable and more satisfying than relationships where boundaries are unclear or inconsistently enforced. Now, Chapter 5. The Mirror Effect. Self-treatment as social signal. This principle is going to feel uncomfortable, but it's perhaps the most important. How others treat you is often a direct reflection of how you treat yourself. If you consistently break promises to yourself, "I'll start tomorrow. Just this once won't matter," you're demonstrating that your word to yourself is unreliable. Others unconsciously sense this and treat your commitments similarly. If your internal dialogue is harsh and self-critical, you unconsciously give others permission to speak to you the same way. You've normalized that tone. Marcus Aurelius spent his life working on this principle. His meditations are essentially a record of his efforts to treat himself with the same patience and respect he wanted from others. He understood that external respect begins with internal respect. Modern psychology validates this through research on self-concept. The beliefs you hold about yourself, even unconsciously, influence your nonverbal communication, your tolerance for poor treatment, and your expectations in relationships. But here's the empowering part. This means you have direct control. Change how you treat yourself, and you change the signal you're broadcasting. Start keeping small promises to yourself. If you say you'll exercise, exercise. If you commit to a boundary, maintain it. Each kept promise builds internal trust and broadcasts a different message. This person's word matters. Speak to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you deeply respect, not with false praise, but with honesty and compassion. When you make a mistake, acknowledge it without self-flagellation. Research shows that self-compassion, treating yourself with kindness while maintaining high standards, is more effective for both personal growth and relationship quality than either self-indulgence or self-criticism. When you do this consistently, others either match your self-respect or remove themselves from your life. Either way, you win. Now, Chapter 6. The Achievement Fallacy. Worth versus performance. One of the most toxic beliefs in modern culture is that respect must be earned through achievement. That once you're successful enough, accomplished enough, perfect enough, then you'll deserve good treatment. The Stoics would say this is completely backwards. Marcus Aurelius was literally once the most powerful man in the world, yet he wrote constantly about his flaws, mistakes, and ongoing struggles. He understood that his worth as a human being was separate from his role as emperor. Here's the truth. Your worth is inherent. You deserve basic respect and dignity simply because you're a conscious being capable of growth, suffering, and love. This isn't earned. It just is. This doesn't mean you stop improving. It means your fundamental right to good treatment doesn't depend on your achievements, appearance, or performance. When you ground your self-respect in achievement, you create a terrible trap. Your worth becomes constantly at risk. Any failure threatens your right to respect. So you accept poor treatment during difficult times because you've decided you don't deserve better right now. The Stoic perspective is liberating. Virtue is about character, not achievement. It's about how you conduct yourself, not what you accomplish. And that's entirely within your control. Research on self-determination theory shows that people with intrinsic self-worth, worth based on internal values rather than external validation, are more resilient, more satisfied with relationships, and more likely to maintain healthy boundaries. When you truly internalize this, that your worth is inherent and your right to respect is non-negotiable, comparison becomes irrelevant. You're not competing for limited respect. You're claiming what's already yours. Now, Chapter 7. The Reset System. Reclaiming respect through action. So how do you actually implement this? The Stoics were practical philosophers. They developed specific practices, not just abstract theories. First, the externalization test. When you're unsure if you're accepting poor treatment, imagine your best friend experienced exactly what you're experiencing. What would you tell them? We see clearly for others what we can't see for ourselves. Marcus Aurelius would describe his problems as if they were happening to someone else, which helped him see them more clearly. Second, define your non-negotiables, not ego-driven demands, basic dignity standards, concrete behaviors, not vague feelings. Instead of, I deserve respect, try, I don't continue conversations where I'm being yelled at, or I don't make plans with people who cancel without notice more than once. Specificity is crucial. Epictetus would tell his students exactly what behaviors to accept and reject, with no ambiguity. Third, implement consequences, not punishments. A punishment is designed to hurt someone else. A consequence is designed to protect yourself. When someone crosses a boundary, the consequence isn't revenge. It's simply a change in your behavior that protects your well-being. They interrupt constantly. You speak less in their presence. They cancel repeatedly. You stop making plans. They dismiss your concerns. You stop sharing with them. These aren't attacks. They're adaptations. You're changing your own behavior based on reality. Fourth, start small. Build momentum. Don't try to revolutionize every relationship simultaneously. Pick one low-stakes situation where disrespect is clear. Practice there first. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Master small challenges before tackling large ones. Fifth, expect testing. When you change your standards, people will test them. This is normal. Someone who's used to disrespecting you will push harder when you set boundaries. Your job isn't to convince people your boundaries are reasonable. It's to maintain them regardless of pushback. People either adapt or remove themselves. Either outcome improves your life. Final chapter, number 8. The practice. Living with dignity. Daily. Self-respect isn't a destination you reach. It's a practice you maintain daily through 1,000 small decisions. Every interaction is a choice. What treatment will you accept? What standards will you uphold? The Stoics lived this. Marcus Aurelius didn't perfect self-respect and then write about it. He struggled with it daily and kept practicing. That's what made him great. Not perfection, but persistent practice. Epictetus taught, if you wish to improve, be content to appear foolish and stupid. You'll mess up. You'll slip into old patterns. That's fine. That's human. The practice isn't about perfection. It's about returning to your standards whenever you notice you've abandoned them. Each time you enforce a boundary, it gets easier. Each time you maintain a standard, it becomes more natural. What starts as conscious effort becomes automatic response. Research on habit formation shows this takes time, typically 60 to 90 days, before new behaviors feel natural. But every single instance of maintaining your standards is a deposit in your psychological bank account. The transformation isn't dramatic, it's gradual. But over time, you'll notice certain people have naturally drifted away. New people have entered who treat you fundamentally differently. Opportunities have appeared that align with your worth. Not because the world changed, but because you stopped accepting less than you deserve. Here's what the Stoics knew. Demanding good treatment doesn't make you difficult. It makes you healthy. Setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish. It makes you sustainable. Refusing disrespect doesn't make you high maintenance. It makes you wise. The people who truly matter in your life won't just respect your boundaries. They'll appreciate them. They understand that relationships built on mutual respect are stronger and more authentic than relationships built on tolerance of poor treatment. Epictetus, who spent most of his life enslaved, ended up teaching philosophy to the most powerful people in Rome. Not because he overcame his circumstances through achievement, but because he never let his circumstances define his self-respect. You have that same capacity. Regardless of your circumstances or history, You can begin establishing new standards right now. Start with one boundary, one situation, one relationship. Implement it consistently for a week. Notice what happens, then expand from there. The transformation won't be immediate, but it will be inevitable. When you consistently enforce standards based on genuine self-respect, reality adjusts to match. Your standards are your choice. Choose wisely, choose consistently, and watch your entire life transform around that choice.